오늘 테크플러스는 크게 두 가지의 강연으로 두 주제를 가지고 강연이 이루어질 텐데요. 첫 번째는 모바일을 넘어 웨어러블로, 그리고 두 번째 주제는 창의적 생각을 현실로라는 주제가 되겠습니다. 오전 시간에는 모바일을 넘어 웨어러블로. 자, 웨어러블이라고 한다면 우리가 예전에는 기계 같은 거는 이렇게 두고 다녔었잖아요. 근데 이제 모바일 시대가 오면서 그것을 휴대할 수 있게, 들고 다닐 수 있게 여러 가지 규모나 기술들이 발전하게 되었습니다. 그러면서 이 다음 단계 이제 wearable, 우리가 착용할 수 있게 되는 그런 단계까지 오게 되었는데요. 이 기술에 대해서 스리다 이엔가 씨의 첫 번째 강연을 청해 듣도록 하겠습니다. 강연 주제는요, Mobile Health and Wearable Technologies, How to Build Startups from the Basement to Around the World. 자, 우리 wearable한 그런 기술 어디까지 왔는지 큰 박수로 청해 듣겠습니다.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to come and speak to everyone at this very prestigious conference. And also, I'd like to thank Dr. Drexler, and I hope I can do a good job following up on his very inspirational presentation. So what I wanted to talk to everyone about today was a little bit less about the technology itself that I've been involved in building, and a little bit more about the lessons that I learned about how to commercialize the technology. Because as great as technologies and new ideas can become, it's very difficult to teach somebody who has been immersed in the technical field how important it is to learn things about the business field. And so myself, as an engineer, I faced a number of different challenges that I hadn't expected when it became my turn to take technologies and put them into the marketplace. And technology is only useful if it reaches many people and if it becomes useful to many people. And as Dr. Drexler mentioned, even though technologies can solve problems, if they're not financially and economically viable, they will never make an impact in this world. And so with that as a backdrop, what I wanted to talk to you about was the two companies that I've had the fortune of being involved with. My first company is called Agamatrix, and my second company that I'm currently building now is called Misfit Wearables. And I'm also extremely thrilled and honored to be here because both companies have very, very strong technology and manufacturing ties to Korea. So again, I thank you for this opportunity, and I'll get started with a little bit of a background of the two companies. My first company was called Agamatrix, and we actually make medical devices. And we were actually the very first company to make a medical hardware device that connected to the iPhone. And the partnership we have was with a Korean company here in the blood glucose monitoring field, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as I go in my presentation. But Agamatrix, I started with my business partner about 12 years ago, and it was based on my PhD work in developing better algorithms and better signal interpretation technologies for how to interpret the signals that come out of a blood glucose measurement. So for people who have diabetes, you prick your finger, get a drop of blood, and measure it on a device. And although those technologies have been around for several decades, we applied a new type of technology, which was signal interpretation and signal processing. And although we brought half the picture to the product, the other half was all the chemistry. And for that, we partnered with a company in Korea called iSense, and we met them about 10 years ago, and they helped us on the chemistry side and the manufacturing side. And I'll get a little bit more into that in this presentation. So, as I mentioned, the first company, Agamatrix, was the commercialization of the work I had done as a PhD student. So the question is, how do you take a academic technology and how do you build it from literally me and my business partner's apartment and into a global franchise? So what I will show you is actually historical pictures, and I'll walk you through the startup story. And I know that many people talk about what it's like to build startups in Silicon Valley or Boston, and this is the kind of story that I think many people don't get a chance to learn in an MBA program. And so what I wanted to show you was, what did it really take to take a technology and bring it to the market? So the first, if I go back, 2001, this is basically my apartment with my business partner, Sunny. Sunny, he's from Vietnam. He and I were college roommates as undergraduates. And so the first thing that we did was, because we quit our regular jobs and we moved in together to save on rent. And we built our own office and apartment, built our own office and lab in our apartment. And what's interesting here is that when you have no capital, you have no track record, and no experience in building a company, you have to rely on resources that you can develop yourself. So in this example here, what I wanted to show was, this was a one-bedroom apartment, and we actually built a second bedroom for Sunny. And we did this mainly because we had to save on capital. We had no financing at that point. And all the furniture that you see and all the computers that you see were objects that we had acquired from MIT. We were located just about 2 miles down from the MIT campus. And what we realized was universities give away and throw away a lot of very useful things, like old computers and old furniture. So our very first office was entirely free because we got everything from MIT. And I think being very close to the university helped in that regard. Now, the first thing we had to do, as I just said, was we had no money. We had no capital. So how do you attract capital to an idea that is relatively unproven? And also, more importantly, how do you attract capital to a founding team that is completely unproven? So it's myself and my business partner. So the first thing we had to do, and we knew that we wanted to make products and technologies in the diabetes space because that was the research I had done, we had to build instrumentation at home. So the first thing we did was we went to the local electronics shop and built a little meter, little device. It's very, very basic, but it functioned. Now, the important thing here, for people who are familiar with the world of diabetes, you need to check the amount of blood sugar, blood glucose. Now, we didn't have a laboratory in our apartment to check for blood, but we were able to go to the supermarket and get some salt and sugar and make a glucose solution, a sugar solution at home that we could use to gather prototype data. Now, at this point, many of my academic colleagues did not believe that, the approach we were taking because, of course, coming from a very reputable academic institution, you would never do experiments on equipment like this. However, this is the key learning that we learned as transitioning from engineers into entrepreneurs, is that the purpose of any activity has to be very well defined. The purpose of this activity was not to get data that we could publish in prestigious journals. The single only purpose of this type of activity was to get a data set that would convince non-technical investors to invest their capital in our idea. And when you scope down the problem to such a limited view, then it's perfectly acceptable to do experiments on something that looked like fell off the back of a pickup truck. So that actually worked. We got our seed financing, and then we built our starting team. That's myself, and Sunny is in the middle there. What's key about this is when you have very limited capital, you cannot take any chances on the kinds of people that you bring onto your team, because the founding team members are extremely critical and extremely important to the culture and success of the company. So we did what anyone else would do. We just hired our friends. So these are all people that we've worked with before and people that we had a relationship with. And that's something that I think a lot of startup companies these days don't embrace as much as they used to, because, to be fair, capital these days is actually a little bit easier to get than capital in 2002. And I say that because if you remember, what happened is the dot-com crash in 2001. So right after that, we had to access capital, and it was extremely difficult. So again, we could not afford to make any mistakes. Now, once we had our capital, we then had to build proper prototypes of our products. Now, again, the first thing we had to do is, if you're going to make electrochemical, biochemical sensors, is we need to have pilot production. And to do that, we needed a clean room. Now, normally, a clean room would cost, $10 $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to actually make. This clean room cost us less than $1,000. And the reason was it's not a real clean room. We actually went to the local Costco. We got HEPA filters we installed in the ceiling there, and all the drapes are very cheap shower curtains. So it was enough for us to make a prototype product. And this is the lessons that oftentimes engineers don't have access to, is that when you're a startup company and when you're trying to get an idea into the marketplace, every bit of real useful capital has to go to the most critical component. And in here, the most critical components were the prototype manufacturing tools. So much like Dr. Drexler was saying before, we're using these tools to make better tools, which is our diabetes products. And all the capital went to the important parts of building our business. And as our team grew, we then realized there's another aspect of commercializing a technology. In this case, for medical technologies, it's about getting through the US FDA. And I show this slide because even for a diabetes product that has already been out on the market for 20, 30, 40 years, we still had quite a bit of documentation and paperwork to submit to the FDA. And in this picture, every single line on those papers represents one document that we had to write and submit to the FDA. And it gives you an appreciation for the scale of documentation and testing that's required, even for an over-the-counter medical device like a diabetes glucose monitoring system. Now, around 2004, 2005, this is when we realized that for us to bring our technology to the market, we could not do it alone. And we were very fortunate to be able to come to Korea in 2004 and meet with another startup company at the time, iSense, and establish a great relationship where they provided the chemistry side of the technology. And then we decided to focus on what we were good at, which was the algorithm side of the technology. We originally wanted to do everything, and we realized that as a small startup company, that was not possible to do. The capital wasn't there, and the risk was too great. So the win-win solution was to go find a technology partner that was best in class and best in the world. And again, very, very, very happy that we came to Seoul to find our great partners. And what that meant was we could work on what we were good at, which was the algorithms and electronics and that half of the R&D, and allow our technology partners to work on the chemistry and manufacturing side of R&D. So we built our new R&D labs in 2005 in Boston. Together with our partners, we actually built our first product, and we shipped it about a year later. And since that, we actually had tremendous success. This is a picture of our first glucose meter, and it was actually on Times Square a number of times, so we felt very proud that we were getting very good publicity for that. Then what happened was we went to trade shows. Now, this is where, as an engineer, you realize, I never realized the importance of marketing until we started to go to trade shows, do advertisements, and all of a sudden, what happened was the word got out of our technology, the word got out of our products, and everybody wanted our product line. So that meant that we had to expand manufacturing and production. And so again, we, together with our very esteemed partners, iSense, we were able to build more production factories, and this was actually just outside of Seoul. And at that point, we realized one thing. We were making great products. We were getting great success. However, people who had diabetes were not checking their blood sugar frequently enough. They were supposed to check it 3 times a day. On average, they ended up checking 1 time a day. So we asked ourselves, why was that? And this next segment is what gave rise an inspiration to work we did from then until now, which is how do you get people to change their behavior? How do you get people to monitor themselves better? And how do you get people to take better care of themselves? And it basically came down to allowing people to have these technologies with them all the time. And that set the stage for what I call wearable technologies. If you don't have the technology with you all the time, you're less likely to use it. It's not about technology, it's about behavior. And right around this time is when Apple came out with the iPhone, and we realized that the reason why people don't test their blood sugar is, number one, they forget their device. Number two, they forget to test, even if they have their device. And number three, if they remember to test and they have their device, it's because they don't know what to do with the number. They just get a number on a screen and they don't know what to do with it. Well, the iPhone changed all that, because if you are able to have a device that's always connected to the iPhone, then you can get reminders, you never forget your device, and the data that's get pulled in, you have access to historical data, trends, averages, graphs, and all sorts of processing and insights. So at that point, we developed the iPhone connected glucose meter, which I'll demo in just a second for you. And we were actually the very first hardware medical device to be cleared by Apple to connect into their iOS ecosystem. And it was a little bit of an eye-opening experience, because it was actually more difficult to get Apple approval than it was to get FDA approval. And that was because with the FDA, they at least have to tell you a reason as to why they don't give you approval. Whereas with Apple, it could be as simple as Steve Jobs didn't like your product and he said no. So we found it very, very, very insightful to learn how to work with Apple. So now, after that, because of that product, we got interest from the world's largest pharmaceutical company, Sanofi. They're the world's leader in insulin manufacturing. So they loved the idea of having a connected device, which in their eyes was virtually wearable, because you take your phone with you everywhere you go. And so when you have a device like that connected, you look at that and you say, well, it's with you all the time. So that became the basis for wearable technologies. So we have a great relationship with Sanofi. We have a great relationship with the Korean partner iSense here. And to summarize all of that, over the last dozen years, what have we done? We've actually made 3 billion glucose biosensor strips here in Korea. We've made about 3 million glucose meters, the actual electronics. Together with our partners here and in China, we have more than 300 production staff that we interact with. In the US, we've got about 150 R&D employees. We've got over 100 patents, and we're distributing in about 25 countries right now. We've had 15 FDA-cleared products, and we've made 2 of the world's first hardware medical devices for the iPhone. And we're able to do all of this because we've always had an uncompromising vision for great technology. And that, I think, is what sets the stage for making great products moving forward. So now I'd like to do a quick demonstration of the first product, which is the iPhone connected meter. Give me 1 second and I will set this up. And I hope nobody is afraid of blood, because I'm going to take a quick sample of myself. So, let me see if I can just have to reset this. So as soon as, I don't know if you can see this or not, but here we go. As soon as you plug this in, it says the meter, this is the glucose meter, it's connected. I can stick in my sensor strip. So this tells me that it's what I should do with my blood. And again, I do this for a living, so I'm very accustomed to doing this all the time. So I can take a quick sample here. And at this point, this is our technology at work. And I get my reading right on my iPhone. And according to this reading, I'm very healthy, and in fact, it looks like I'm actually hungry. I should be a little bit higher than this, so I think it's time for lunch soon for me. So at this point, I can now take this reading. I have a whole historical set of my readings as well. If I want, I can look at my readings in pattern form. So all of a sudden, I have this entire medical diagnostic system in my pocket. And this is what gave me and my business partner the inspiration to take our vision for wearable technologies and wearable electronics one step further. This was a fantastic product for people who had diabetes. And this was a fantastic product in the medical world. But we wanted to expand beyond that. We actually wanted to go beyond diabetes. We wanted to go to disease prevention. We wanted to go to health and wellness. And that set the stage for the next company. So about 2 years ago, we started our second company, and we called it Misfit Wearables. And you might ask, why do we call it Misfit? And it's because we actually have several ties to Apple. And the word Misfit is a tribute to Steve Jobs' famous speech, which starts, "Here's to the misfits, here's to the crazy ones." And by some strange coincidence, we were technically founded right on the day when, incorporated on the day that Steve Jobs passed away. And the other strange contact that we have with Apple is we have three co-founders in the company, myself, Sonny, who's in the middle, and the gentleman on the end is Mr. John Scully, who was actually the former CEO of Apple for 10 years. So we had met him socially through our first company, and the three of us decided 2 years ago to form Misfit together. So we felt that that defined us very well, because when we were in the diabetes space, the industry looked at us in a funny way, and they said, "You don't fit, you don't make sense, why are you doing this?" So we always felt like we didn't fit in, and so the name was very befitting for us for a new venture. Now, again, taking the concept of wearable technologies and building this out into another business, it was a bit risky, because wearable technologies are new. The market isn't there yet, it's not fully created. We also knew something else which was very difficult, or very risky. As second-time entrepreneurs, we saw that a lot of our friends who were second-time entrepreneurs, they did very well in their first company, and they failed completely in their second company. And we were very careful about this, and the reason was, when you have a successful first company, it is extremely easy to get capital financing for your second company. What this means is you might come up with an idea that may not be very good, but you will have people lined up to give you financing for it because they believe you did it once and you will do it again. That's a huge risk. We saw many of our friends not succeed in the second company because they raised money and capital for eventually what became not a very good company or not a very good idea. So being aware of this, we went to a particular sets of investors and got financing from them. And that's Founders Fund and Khosla Ventures. Now, if you're familiar with Founders Fund, Founders Fund is a company that is an investment firm that was founded by the ex-PayPal founders, and it was set up to help entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs take their ideas to the next level. And we had confidence that the folks at Founders Fund and also Khosla Ventures, which is really backed by Vinod Khosla, that they knew how to ask the right questions, the tough questions, and make sure that the ideas that we had were not just crazy ideas that wouldn't work, but were actually thought out well enough and had a possibility of succeeding. So the three of us seeded the company in 2011. Khosla and Founders Fund invested in 12. And here's where things got a little funny. We raised financing for a particular wearable product. As we were doing the feasibility, as we were building this out, we realized the product we were building, there wasn't a real clear market for it. So there was market risk. And beyond that, we saw the other activity monitors like Fitbit, Nike Fuel Band, the Jawbone Up, and other pedometers. We saw that pedometer market skyrocketing. It was growing exponentially. So at this point, we looked at our initial product concept and we said, okay, I think we can build it technically, but there's market risk. We looked over here and we said, well, pedometers we can certainly build, and there's less market risk. So maybe as our first product, we should go after this market and this product, because even though we'll eventually build this will de-risk the business side of our investment and of our business. And that, again, is another learning that we had from our building our first company, was it's better to go after an existing market and build a better mousetrap than it is to go after a new market that doesn't exist, because it takes an incredible amount of capital, an incredible amount of risk to try and educate people that they need to buy this product or that this product is necessary. In diabetes, those glucose meters have been around for 20, 30 years before we came in and made ours. The market was already established. Now we noticed that activity monitors, like the Fitbit and Jawbone and Nike Fuel Band, that market exists and was growing exponentially. So we decided to pivot and make a product that we call the Misfit Shine, which I'm wearing right now. I'll demo it for you later. We decided to make that product. But before we expended capital, the question was, is it actually a good idea? Just because these companies are succeeding, is the market ready to accept yet another product like this? So we turned to crowdsourcing or crowdfunding. And I'm sure some of you know Kickstarter. Well, we used a platform called Indiegogo. Very similar. And we expected to raise about $100,000, and we didn't need the capital. It was more to test out the market. And what we found was that we had 10 times the demand, and we decided that this was actually a good product. And so we decided to build what eventually became this product, the Shine. So this is an activity tracker, and what's unique about this is that you can wear it anywhere. You have a clasp, you can wear it any part of your body, not just on the wrist. And it actually tracks various things like your sleeping, your running, your cycling, your swimming. It is waterproof. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but if you can tap it, you can actually see some of the lights come on. And what that tells you is your progress for how far you've gotten with your activities. Are you running enough? Are you walking enough? Are you swimming enough? And we figured this was a very, very simple interface that people wanted. So now, let me tell you a little bit about Misfit as a company. Again, I mentioned that my business partner is from Vietnam. So although we have headquarters in San Francisco, where we do all of our hardware and industrial design, in Ho Chi Minh City, we have all of our data science, all of our software engineers, and our UX and graphic design engineers. And as I mentioned, in Seoul, we have our sensor development partner and all of our manufacturing. So I think I'll be coming back to Seoul probably for the next 10 years very regularly. So I'm looking forward to enjoying many more years of good bibimbap. And so getting back to Shine, Shine is an activity tracker. The idea is that if you can wear it wherever you want, whenever you want, it keeps track of your motion. And more importantly, we have an app that is associated with it that then interprets this data and tells you things like, well, are you sleeping well? Are you running? Are you walking? Have you done enough exercise, enough activity? And more trends and patterns and analysis. And I think that's what we found with our first product in diabetes was the product was one thing, but if you didn't have the data and the information, it wasn't as useful. Now, what was different about our approach here at Misfit on wearables, we are not solving the data accuracy problem. We're not saying this is the most accurate sensor on the market. What we're solving is the data incompleteness problem. If you don't wear the sensor, you get no data. So if you get no data, it's no use. So the problem we're solving is how do you make a device that people will wear all the time, will want to wear, and will use? So the first thing is it's got to look nice. I know that there are lots of activity monitors out there. There's big plastic bands. And I can tell you that my fiance would never wear something like that with a nice dress, but she would wear this. And so that's the kind of problem that we're solving with technology. It's not science, it's psychology. So finally, I'd just like to wrap up. I think I've got just a few more seconds. Our product for wearable technology, this one, the Shine, is going to be available fairly globally by the end of the year. And we'll be selling in Korea soon. We're just going to be releasing the Android version of our app, and we're very proud, and we're looking forward to doing that before the holiday season begins. And the rest of the world should come sometime next year. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much, and I hope that you've enjoyed listening to my story about how to build a technology company.